Welcome to Magic and Mysticism, the podcast, with Tommy Burnett, New York City's favorite mind reader, where each week he converses with some of the leading mystery performers in the world. Today's guest is magician Alyx Hilshey. So sit back and relax while I introduce your host, Mr. Tommy Burnett.
Hi, and welcome to Magic and Mysticism, the podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Burnett, New York City's favorite mind reader. And today we have a very special guest. This young lady has taken her love of magic and created an act that is so fun and amazing to watch. I had to have her on the show. Her name is Alyx Hilshey, and we're about to have a really cool conversation. But first, here is a quick clip of what she can do.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alyx, and I'm a street performer. Now perhaps you've seen magicians like me out there on the street. We're the ones with the magic stick. Ready? Gone. It's actually really gone. Nah, it's alright though. You see I keep an extra one and oh, I forgot. Sometimes I keep it over here in the hat. Yeah, I keep a lot of things here in the hat. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, when you've got an apron full of magic and a hat like mine, well, I can make a living wherever I go. Because at the end of my show, I pass this hat around and it comes back full of money. I know, it's my favorite trick. But it's also how I put food on a table. That's a pumpkin. So ladies and gentlemen, tonight, in an effort to help keep this dying art form alive, I'm going to show you a glimpse of street magic. My show starts right now.
Hey, Alyx.
Hi.
How are you?
I am doing great. I'm super excited and honored to be on your show.
Thank you. That was wonderful. If anybody wants to see the rest of that clip, you can go to look at it on YouTube, or you can find it on Alyx's Facebook page. So look for Alyx Hilshey. Alyx, it's so great to have you on the show. The minute I asked you, I don't know if you remember this, but you responded with an interesting response. You were like, you want me?
Oh gosh, do we have to? Yeah, go for it. Yeah. So when you first asked me to be on the show, I was shocked. You can tell him. I mean, or I can't. It's up to you.
And I was like, hey, I've seen your stuff. It's great. We gotta have you on the show, and I'm so glad. A lot of people don't realize this, that but when I was much younger, I used to bus in New York City.
Really?
Yeah, in Central Park by the boat basin. I did Leaking Greens, and I did, I won't forget. I only remember doing Leaking Greens, but I know I did about a 20-minute act 5 or 6 times a day during the warm weather. It was a lot of fun, but we're not here to talk about me.
No, it's a great way to get flight time and to break the material in.
Yeah.
I mean, busking has made me the performer I am, and to do it in Central Park, that's a really very legit pitch, you know? So that's really awesome. I didn't know that, Tommy. That's so cool.
Yeah, I don't make it well known because I probably wasn't that great to begin with. I'm a lot better now. But like you said, I got plenty of hours of flight time and experience under my belt and learning how to manage my audience. So it definitely wasn't that time wasted for me.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, where else can you go where you can do your show? Like you said, 5 times a day, every single day that you go out. I mean, there's no better place to become a magician and for you to eventually become a mentalist. I mean, it's just the greatest training ground, Yeah.
Yeah. So what got you started in magic?
Yeah. I have like a really standard starting story. And but I was really fortunate because it was a magic kit when I was a kid, but it was a really good magic kit. So my grandparents lived in Florida, and back in the early 90s, there was a chain of magic stores called Old Town Magic, right? And actually, a well-known magician today, Michael Eaton, used to be a demoer at Old Town Magic. Well, anyway, yeah, so they sent me this VHS and a little kit from Old Town Magic, and I learned how to do the cups and balls when I was 6 years old, and I learned how to do Professor's Nightmare, which for any non-magicians watching, it's like you're stretching unequal rope lengths. And so I learned these like classics of magic whenever I was 6. And my parents were super supportive, and they somehow they helped me to find shows. And as a kid, I went around to like other elementary schools and like little community events, and I did my little show as like a 6, 7, 8-year-old. I got paid $20 a show, and when you're like 7 or 8 years old, that's big money. And I'm sure I spent it all on magic. And so anyway, yeah, I did that till I was like 10. And then I lost interest, and I regret this tremendously, but I put my wand down until I was 19. And then I was a server at a restaurant, and I'm looking around, I'm like, if I did magic at these tables, I would get really good tips. And I didn't even know that like restaurant magic was a thing. Like I thought I was inventing it, but so I started doing it, and I got huge tips, and like my tips like increased 500%. And all the other servers were like, will you come to my table and do magic? And so now I started getting regulars. Like they were all coming in, and they would be like, oh, can we sit in Alyx's section? And so now like the whole restaurant would have all these like empty seats, except for my section would always be full. And so anyway, that was kind of my rebirth as a magician. And then I was also really lucky because, at that point I'm like, well, I need more material. And I pulled out this old Tannins catalog that I had from when I was a kid. And I flipped through and I found a couple things that looked like they'd be good. And I drove to a magic store an hour away. And this is like middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. And I walked through the door, and there's this guy that I've seen before. And I'm like, I look at my Tannins catalog, and he's like, has a giant picture in the Tannins catalog. And it was the former co-owner of Tannins. His name was John Blake. And he was the co-owner with Tony Spina. And he had kind of like retired to the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. And he opened a tiny little brick and mortar, magic store. And he became my teacher, my mentor, and he taught me how to, how to do. I'm gonna get in frame here, but how to, back palm, and and that was kind of how I got into it, and how I, started to learn better magic was through meeting John Blake just on a fluke. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I knew John. Briefly from Tannins.
You did?
Yeah, Tony Spina was more of a mentor for me. But yeah, wow, yeah. I don't. 10 is a lot different now. It's still a really great store, and one of the only 3 brick and mortar stores in Manhattan. It used to be, well, when I was a kid, I think it was 10 when I was a kid. So
Oh,
now
wow.
we got, yeah, actually, no, I'm sorry. Now we're down to 2 because one recently moved to New Jersey. It's
Okay.
still open, but it's no longer in New York. We have a couple of your friends on here. I think we have Jen Dunyan and
Oh yeah,
Judith.
hi Jen. Thanks. She's a mom friend. Thanks
Oh,
for the
nice.
support.
And Judith Michael.
Oh yeah, hi. Hi
Yeah.
Judy Sue. Hi everyone.
So
That's so funny.
if anybody wants to make a comment, go ahead. Or if you have a question for Alex or myself. So I didn't mean to interrupt. But so John was your teacher growing up. Did you have any other influences?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that I had 3 people, magicians who influenced me very directly. And then, there's a couple that are really that inspire me. If you watch my work, you're going to see a lot of Cellini, obviously, because I present as the street persona. And I really like the manipulation, right? And so, Cellini was essentially, he was a manipulator that went out on the street and did really classic magic and did a lot of Slidini's work. And, he was one of Slidini's greatest students, as I'm sure you know. So, Cellini and Slidini are big influences to me. But in life, like the people that I actually interacted with, so John was huge. I was John's student, and I wanted to be a manipulator, like up on the stage. I wanted to do billiard balls, and I wanted to, do card manipulation. And back then, smoking wasn't as taboo. I wanted to be like Fraxton and like produce 500 cigarettes.
Right.
I'm so glad I didn't invest my time in that. There's no place for it. But anyway, I was kind of also John's driver. He didn't like to drive at this point, and I would drive him down to Denman Lee's, and we would go to the lectures, and and anyway, he had kind of a mission for me. So he was going to be going to Hankley's conclave back in about like 2008, I think.
Yeah.
And he asked me to pick up his new business partner, this guy named Reed. I didn't know who Reed was. I didn't have the internet to like check people out, but he wanted me to pick up Reed in Boston and bring him to Hank Lee's, and Reed was going to be demoing all John's material. So anyway, I pull up to this hotel in Boston, and kind of nervous. And, I was like 21 years old, so had not really, gone to big cities before. And anyway, I knock on the door, and this guy with like sleeve tattoos and a bicked head, and he's huge. And I'm like, Reed? And he's like, yeah. And as scary as he looked, he was the nicest, like safest, most friendly person ever. And it turns out Reed McClintock is one of the best coin magicians that came out of the early 2000s, and he's still doing it today. But he was like a real like mover and groover. He was on like all of Curtis Cam's DVDs. And so anyway, Reed and I did a magic session that night, and it was like 4 hours of the greatest sleight of hand I've ever seen in my life. And it totally like shattered my perceptions of reality. And I was like, I'm going to be this good someday. And so that was kind of like a really big moment. But then that same weekend, we're at Hank Lee's, and right next to John Blake's dealer's booth is Ted Brainerd's dealer's booth, Cosmo from Real Magic Magazine. And so Cosmo had just gotten started with Real Magic Magazine, and he was signing people up for the online subscriptions. And well, back then they actually sent DVDs out. Any chance he had, he kept telling me about the street, street magic. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to work on the street. Like, I'm going to do, manipulation, out there in the on the stage. And, there's no place for that. You're not going to do that. Like, you need to look into street magic. And he sold me on it so big that by the end of the weekend, I'm like, all right, maybe I should do this. And so anyway, that kind of planted the seed for me to become a street performer. Then the next step was I got a job. I got a real job. I was designing mining equipment for an engineering firm. I was working as an engineer, and I was so bored. I mean, I had a great job. Life was wonderful, but I was so bored and I couldn't do magic. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to apply to grad school because that's responsible. But if I don't get in, I'm going to move to Salt Lake City and I'm going to become a full-time restaurant magician, right? I got into grad school. So I was, grateful, but also like, oh no, I guess I'm not going to be a magician. Well, I go to the college town in New England and I walk down the street and there's jugglers and there's people singing and playing the guitar. And I'm like, this is the place where I could do magic like Cosmo told me about. And that is how I became a busker. And I spent the whole summer as a busker, like 6 days a week. And it was amazing. And I could talk on and on and on for that. But I won't. Just one little tidbit.
No, please, we have time.
Yeah. Well, all right. So I put a show together on a Monday night. I auditioned for my street permit on Tuesday. The show was like 12 hours old. They gave me the permit. They booked me for 2 city events right there on the spot. I went out on the street with my permit. I set up my table. I did a 10-minute show for one family, and they put a $20 bill in my hat. I'm like, wow. So then 3 minutes later, I did another show for a couple and one other guy, and they put a $20 bill and a $10 bill in my hat. Then it started raining, and I duck into this coffee shop, and I'm like, I just made $40 in 25 minutes. I'm not going to grad school, And so I bust, and I learned, and it was really great. But my apartment was gross. It had fleas, and they were so bad, and I hated being there. And I would come home, and there'd be fleas on my legs, and I'm like, and I did all the toxic flea bombs, and it didn't work. And so I'm like, you know what? I called my landlord and say, I'm leaving for a month. Figure this out. And then I went on a tour, and I went up and down the East Coast, and had a great time, like working on this little town in Cape Cod, and I got kicked off a lot of boardwalks in New Jersey, and did Ocean City, Maryland. It was really cool. And then I came back to this town in New England, and I'm working there again after my little tour. And there's this guy. I'm walking down the road, and there's this guy in this great big Hawaiian shirt. He's got white hair and a goatee, and he's got a crowd around him, and he's larger than life. It was Cosmo, the same magician that I had met at Hankley's Conclave, and he was out there street performing, and he was so good. I watched him like for half a day. Then I was doing shows, and he came and watched me. And then we went out for burritos, and I sat there counting my 5s, and he sat there counting his 20s and occasionally his 50s. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a lot to learn. Well, anyway, he convinced me that I needed to go to grad school and to be responsible. And so at the end of that summer, I went to grad school, and I stopped street performing for a little while. And then I became a grown up, and I had like a teaching job for a little bit. But I still was a busker in the summers, and I've got stories about that we can talk about later. But anyway, that was my like 20-minute origin story. So there you go. You probably didn't want to answer that long. So
no, I actually I did.
Awesome.
is a commercial for I think it's for the Air Force, and
Tommy, can you say that again? My computer just froze for like one sentence.
sure. There's a commercial for the Air Force, and I think the tagline is "Everybody has an origin story," and this is yours. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's something that is overlooked by many people in our field that you know where do people start? You know, because we we didn't become who we are like overnight.
Yeah,
Yes.
it really shapes us,
Um,
and we're all so different. My show is radically different than your show.
so
And
I put this up before. This is Meadow. This is Meadow, right?
oh, hi, Meadow.
And
Hi,
and
thanks for
and,
tuning in.
and so is this. That's Meadow also.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
and
Yeah.
actually, so is that. I didn't realize. But anyway, I think it's important not only for other people to know where you come from, but I think it's important for us as performers and people to own where we come from, and no matter what it was, but because in my case, very quickly, um, my parents didn't want me to be a musician. They didn't want me to be. They didn't want me to be a performer because they were performers and they knew how hard it was. They knew how hard it was to make a living, and
Yeah.
the more they fought me, the more I fought back. So
Wow. So
um,
you rebelled by following in their tracks. Oh
exactly,
my God.
yeah. Um,
Oh my goodness.
and in some ways, I wish I had listened to them. Uh, but in other ways, I'm glad that I didn't. But
Yeah.
that is a story for another time. Um,
But I have to know. So what were your parents? What kind of performers were they?
thank you for asking. My father was an actor
Oh,
um,
nice.
in movies and Broadway and radio. He was one of
Wow.
the He was one of the top 10, or actually probably one of the top three radio and TV actors in America during the late 70s and all through the 1980s and part of the 1990s. And you probably never heard of him. You probably seen him, but you probably never heard of him. And my mother was a dancer and choreographer, um, specializing in Renaissance and medieval dance and choreography. And
Wow.
and
That is super specific. That is amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
you know, one thing I learned from both of my parents, despite the fact that they didn't want me to be in the business, is to do what you love. Um, my mother was always, even to this day, enthralled by um, Elizabethan times and Renaissance and medieval Italy and France. Um, so I even danced for her one summer because one of her dances, um, I think, broke his leg or did something to his leg. So I had to learn all the parts. And
Wow.
yeah,
That is so cool.
So yes and no. I have a picture of me somewhere. I was like 15 or 16, and I was so angry because I was wearing the Renaissance costume, and I obviously was not happy about it.
Yeah, it's not
But
what you want to do when you're a teenager, huh? Oh my God. Yeah, but what
and
a foundation, to have that tremendous acting
yeah,
background, the speaking background,
yeah,
and the movement background, like
yeah,
that. Like what a
yeah,
foundation your parents must have given you.
yeah. I'm very blessed for that. But again, this is not about me. but thank you for bringing me into. I want this to be a conversation.
Yeah, back and
Um,
forth. I love it.
yeah, but I want this to be a conversation mostly about you.
All right. So
um,
what's next? Oh yeah, and then you had asked about influences, and I talked about the people in my life, but
right.
then also, people that I've not met. I got to go back to Cellini. Cellini was so amazing what he did and what he created, and like now all the buskers and magic are Gazo clones.
Right.
Because he has his famous cups and balls, and then produces 6 oranges and a giant melon, and it's like what could be better.
Right.
But Cellini, like there's a really wonderful video of him on YouTube right now that is from 1986, and it's fantastic. And anybody who's interested in street magic should go, Google Cellini on YouTube and go watch this old show. He's wearing, he called it a, I wouldn't use the term, but he called it like his gypsy persona. And so he
Right.
has it's kind of appropriation, but the times are different.
Right.
He's got his buskers pouches, and he's really fantastic. And, this guy could close a show with Professor's Nightmare. The same trick that I learned when I was 6 years old. He closed his show with it back in the 80s. I mean, it's just incredible. So, so he's a really big one. And then today, so there magicians today, I made a little note of my influences. There's 2 of them out there that I just think are just amazing. And it's a Tom Stone. And I'll talk about Tom first. If you watch a lot of my performances, I'm using ideas that I learned from reading and watching Tom Stone material. I'm so interested in misdirection, because, John Blake that we talked about, he took some lessons with Slidini. He was a student of Frank Garcia, 2 masters of misdirection, especially Slidini. And so I love that stuff. And I think, Tom's misdirection, I think, is very rooted in Slidini, but then also Juan Tamariz, and then his own ideas. Yeah. And so I love that stuff. So he's so amazing. And then Nicola Arcane is boy, she is phenomenal. She's from Ireland, and I'm sure but for any of our other watchers, Nicola she's in Sweden right now, and just doing tons and tons of Zoom shows, I guess. But her work for adults, her misdirection is also so incredibly strong, but she also comes from like an acting background. And so her facial expressions are just amazing to watch. And so those are my influences, like for people that I haven't met, is Tom Stone and Nicola, because they're awesome. So.
Yeah. I actually haven't met Nicola. I actually, she's on my list. Nicola, if you're watching, I'd love to have you on the show.
Oh yeah, you should. That would be such an amazing show.
Yeah.
It'd be so good.
Yeah, I was watching something of hers earlier today, and she's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's watching or not. I don't see her on here. Of course, I don't have my glasses on. But this says we have 10 people watching. So
great.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, hello, everyone. And Meryl again says, hi, Alyx. So,
Yeah, Meadow is so great, and I know that we're mirroring our conversations from her show. But yeah, Meadow actually lives, I think, like 45 minutes or an hour away, and we haven't met in person because of the pandemic. But gosh, she did such a great job on your show, but I really admire her because she is such a worker, and I think that she has put in so much time during the pandemic to create her Zoom show. It's fantastic. I've seen her Zoom show twice now, and it's so good. And so yeah, she's another influence just because of how much she works and how hard she works. So yeah. So Meadow, thanks for watching. Yeah.
Also, thank you for keeping the magic alive. I love Meadow, so
yeah, if anybody has a chance to watch her Zoom shows, I think she has like a public Zoom show that you can buy tickets for like once a month. And so she is doing Unlocked, and they're awesome. I watched it with my kids, and my kids just went nuts, because in Zoom shows, for anybody who's never seen one, you show your expression with like American Sign Language jazz hands.
Yeah.
My son, he is almost 8, and he's not one to be like super expressive with applause. But boy, every couple seconds, he was going wild at Meadow's show. And my 4-year-old daughter at the end said, when I grow up, I am going to be a bubble magician, and I'm going to do 4 shows every day. And so, it was pretty cool. So it was very sweet. So, yeah. So anyway, shout out for Meadow. So, yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's next? Where are we at?
If Meadow, if you're still watching and you want to type in the info for your show, I'll be happy to play it on the video here. So, what is your favorite highlight so far in your magic career?
Well, that's a good question. So, I think it was my last day of street performing, and I think it's just like kind of nostalgia. But I took my family to my old home pitch, right? So a pitch, for anybody that's not familiar, is like a place where a street performer works. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to spend 1 month busking, and this is a couple summers ago. My kids and my spouse were just going to hang out with family, and we were staying in this little cabin. It was off grid. There was no electricity. There was no running water. It was really peaceful, and my kids actually like blossomed without like television or anything. It was really neat. And then, but every day I was going to go busk, and I was able to do this because I was a teacher at the time and I had summers off. Well, anyway, I was about 2 weeks into busking that summer, and I was just growing like exponentially by the day. I had so many lines. My show was like getting longer and longer. It was like a half an hour. And the year prior to that, I had spent some time down in New Orleans, and I got to work with like Bobby Maverick and Emmett Miller. And, and so I took all that knowledge from New Orleans, and I was at my home pitch, and I was starting to crush it. And I'm starting to like make bank. I'm making like $100 an hour. Like some shows might've been like $150 a hat, Nice. I mean, it was going great. I was in my flow state. And then one day I noticed that my arms were starting to get this terrible rash, and my other arm was terrible rash. My hands were covered in rash. I had poison ivy so bad because we were living in this off-grid cabin, and it was all over my body, and I couldn't work. Like I can't go out there and do sleight of hand magic covered in poison ivy. And then after that, my kids got Lyme disease from ticks, and I feel so terrible about that. My dog ate rat poison, and we decided to go home. And my dog is fine. We were able to treat her, and she's fine. But it was this like terrible, like these things just didn't work. And so why is this my highlight? Well, it's because that I still have this vivid memory of my last street show. And Tony, I don't know if you remember this from when you were a street performer, but all the shows kind of blur together. Like for me, like they're all just like one big blur because it's the same show over and over and over again, you know, just different audiences. But that last show is just emblazoned on my soul because it was the best that I ever was. And it was probably somewhere around like my 900th show out there. So I'm not like a super experienced street performer. Like guys like Cosmo have done 50,000 street shows, Bobby Maverick, 30,000 street shows. And you know, but it was like my 900th street show thereabouts. And I was just in my flow. And so it's been a couple of years since I've been a street performer. And so that's kind of just the highlight because it was like the culmination of you know, that. And then I was getting ready to blossom. But anyway, I actually took some time off from magic to be at home with my kids. And it's only in the last 2 years that I started doing magic again. And I was doing strolling magic. And then, you know, the pandemic hit and I canceled a bunch of bookings. And now I think I've had like maybe 6 or 7 gigs, like very small or outside since the pandemic. But yeah, so that's the highlight. It's just that last show and flow state before all the things went wrong. So that's
great. That's a beautiful highlight.
Oh, thanks.
So maybe a similar question, maybe not. Where is the coolest place you've ever performed?
Yeah, so like probably the most fun place is this little hippie town on the end of Cape Cod. It's called Provincetown. And it is just this funky little artsy town. And I showed up there on a whim. And, you know, basically I had an atlas. I didn't have a smartphone. You know, I had never heard of any of these places, but I was just like looking for neat places to go. And I pull into this town and I walk into the police department. I'm like, hey, do you need a permit here? They're like, yeah, but it's really easy. You know, I got my permit and I go out there and the one day it was 4th of July, the Monday after 4th of July, and there were so many tourists and it was so great. And so I set up and I'm doing shows and these people are like excited and they're wealthy and they want to have a good time. Like they're probably staying like at their, you know, ritzy houses along Cape Cod, but they've come to Provincetown to have a good day. And they're dropping 20s, just 20 after 20 after 20 in my hat. And but then there's this cop and he's across the street and he keeps watching me and he's frowning. And I'm a little nervous. I'm probably like 23, something like that, you know? And so I didn't know what to do. So anyway, the middle of my act, I always had like a card to mouth trick and I would always show him the selection of like, and sir, you can see it too. It's the, you know, 8 of diamonds, or, you know, and I started including him and not knowing what to do because he just kept staring at me. About 3 or 4 shows later, he walks up and I'm like, oh, this is it. You know, I'm getting kicked out of town. and he's frowning and I'm shaking. And he says, you know, I think if you went across the street on that busy sidewalk, I think you do a lot better. And I'm like, oh, thank God. You know, and you know, and so I did, and I blocked traffic like crazy, which is like a huge no-no for street performers. The cop told me to do it, and anyway, it was just the best day because I would finish a show, and as soon as I was done, people would say, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a magician. I'm starting my show right now." And so like I had like 20 seconds between shows. And every show would be like $30, $40, $50 in my hat, you know. And yeah, so that was like the coolest place. And I'm okay tipping that if there's any street performers listening because it's not a good long-term pitch because there's nowhere to stay. There's, you know, you kind of drive in, you do it, you leave. You know, there's nowhere to stay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Nice.
I did some busking in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, on Pearl Street?
Yeah, on Pearl Street, yeah. not for very long, because there were some regulars there who didn't didn't like didn't like me
Yeah.
moving in on their territory. But it was fun for a couple months. Um, it was during my strolling days, and for me, strolling was strolling from state to state. I have performed in 48 out of 50 states.
No way.
During
Wow.
my
What are the
yeah,
two that you've not done? Is it like Hawaii and Alaska?
yeah.
So you got to change that. Yeah, as soon as like COVID's over, you got to like get on a
Yeah,
plane. Oh my gosh, that's
yeah,
amazing. 48 states.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That is so cool. So did you just do like tours? Like, was it like a
yeah.
college tour or?
Um, anywhere that would take me. I
Yeah.
did colleges, I did cafes, I did nightclubs, anywhere that wanted a young, at the time, young musician.
Yeah.
um,
And so if you
yeah,
didn't find gigs, you would just be a street performer, you busk?
yeah. And if they asked me to move on, I move on. But most places didn't say anything, so I just stayed there. But it was a different time back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like I couldn't do that in Manhattan anymore. Um, now they kind of rope you off, and if you want to perform in Times Square, they give you these little boxes that are painted on the sidewalk, and it was like, you can't come find me.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I
You know,
know. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
This
but
summer I'm moving, my family and I are moving back to this like home pitch that you'll notice I haven't tipped the location of this home pitch.
yeah,
But anyway, they do the
maybe.
same thing. They make you move every single hour, or at least that's what it
Yeah,
used to be. It might be like every 40
yeah,
minutes now, which is, really cuts into the work time,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not for. Yeah, they do that here too. Um, I forget. Um, I think it's an hour here. Um, I haven't. I haven't even bothered busing since about 2000. About 2000. Um, and I haven't had to either, but um, um, I've been pretty fortunate, except for during the pandemic. But let's move on to something I think is important to talk about.
Yeah.
Not that what we've been talking about isn't important, but I think this next topic is something that needs to be addressed more, especially by men. Um, and the topic is magic for years has unfortunately been dominated by men, and luckily, more and more talented women like yourself have been rising up everywhere. And what has that been like for you, being a woman in magic?
Yeah. Well, so I have this book here, right? If you watch any of my YouTube videos, I always have a book club. So this is The Magic of Don Allen, you know? And anyway, in the back of this book, it gives advice. There's like 15 pieces of advice. And one of them is don't perform magic for magicians. And I think over the years, I kind of misinterpreted that to mean like don't associate with magicians. And anyway, I guess the point of that book is that for the longest time, I really wasn't in the magic community. Like I had my little show. It was 3 tricks. I did the same 3 tricks for that 900 shows. And other than like a couple of street magicians, I really just wasn't ever in the magic community. But I kind of came into the magic community just since the pandemic. And, you know, like I have been doing my strolling magic and doing some private parties, but again, wasn't in the magic community. But then last like March, all of a sudden, like I'm bored out of my skull, you know, as we all were. And we were all, you know, like kind of our worlds were getting really small. And so I just started to like film little things in my bathroom and you know, I had never filmed my magic before. I didn't even practice with filming, which is like the, you know, film and magic is like the best thing for practice, but I never did that. Right. I just performed. So I started filming these things and found like a magic Facebook group, which is probably how you kind of found me. And I got a tremendous reaction. And like, I think that I probably got much more of a reaction than I should have. And I think it's just because I stood out. You know, I think it's because people aren't used to seeing, you know, women on, you know, in the community who are doing, you know, hard sleight of hand. I mean, I don't do super hard sleight of hand, but, you know, like I do some manipulative things. And so I think it just kind of made me stand out. And it's helped me to meet tons of magicians, you know, and a big part of that is just because of COVID, a lot of really amazing and awesome magicians who would be super busy working are not working right now, or they're not working much. And so, you know, everybody's a little bit more available for networking perhaps. But again, I think it's because, you know, because I stand out, that I'm able to maybe make connections a little bit easier. And, you know, so that's kind of like been the biggest thing is just that I stand out. And yeah, and I don't know. I mean, so like a con would be, I think that people are much more willing to critique me, like other magicians. Like I think that they're super fast to critique me, and like a little bit faster than they would be for magicians who are men. And you know, that is okay. I kind of see it as, you know, what it is. And sometimes I ask for it. Like I ask for a lot of critique and then it's totally fine. But a lot of times like, I don't ask for it and they still like, you know, tear my stuff apart. But it makes me better, you know, because I don't want to get torn apart. So if I'm going to be posting my material online, I don't want magicians to tear it apart. So I work a lot harder because of that. You know, and I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think I someday I want to be the best, you know, like I just want to work really hard and be the best. And I want to, you know, be on a level playing field with everyone else. So yeah, those are just some thoughts. The other aspect is like, I'm a mom, you know, and so I have 3 little kids. And so that kind of makes it a little bit harder, you know, because I've been homeschooling my kids for the last, I think about 3.5 years. And so I'm with my kids all day and I'm with them all night. And, you know, and so like, I don't always have a lot of time to practice. And then sometimes I'm just kind of exhausted, you know, as all parents of young children are. It's not specific to moms. But so like, that's kind of, you know, one thing. And like, if you watch some of my videos, like a lot of times you'll hear little kids like screaming in the background, you know. But yeah, so yeah, you know, that's kind of my thing is if anything, it's really just helped me to stand out, you know.
Good.
Yeah. But another thing though is like I mean, this is just a silly thing, but pockets. I don't have pockets. Yeah. So like when I was doing the strolling thing, when I did the strolling thing, I bought all these like hip purses from Italy, and I looked like a stormtrooper with like a utility belt on because I had like these like little deck holders. I mean, I looked like a joke, and I was at a strolling gig 2 holiday seasons ago, and I walked up to this group of people and did great magic for them. And later that night, the guy came up and said, "When you approached me, I was so nervous because I thought you were a cop." And it's because I looked like a cop with a utility belt full of magic. So pockets. Yeah, pockets. That's my gripe. So yeah.
Well, I forget what book it was. It might have been Modern Magic or Greater Magic, one of those really old books.
Yeah, like Devant.
Yeah, and there was a drawing of a tails coat for a man that had all these secret pockets that you could sew in. I was like 12 years old, and there was no way I was gonna get away with wearing a top hat and tail. But I remember trying to, because that one was for a cane, that you could have your cane in your jacket, and the lower part of the cane would go down your pant leg.
Oh my gosh.
But it was like it seemed very comfortable, and you wouldn't have, I don't know why this was popping into my head. I tried throwing pockets into what was probably a $100 jacket at the time, so that would have been like a $600 or $700 jacket now. And my parents were furious because they thought I ruined the jacket, but I even put like a chopper in there before I knew how to use the chopper. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent. Have you ever felt like anybody treat you differently because you're a woman in magic?
Yeah, I mean, but probably, I think that like sometimes, people maybe give me more credit than I deserve. Like, like the fact that like I can, back. I mean, this is like the 3rd time. It's like the only trick I know, Tommy. I just, and I think like people see that and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so amazing," and I really appreciate it, But like, go watch Jeff McBride, I can do it with like 20 cards, and he can do it with like 52. At least yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think in that way, like I'm maybe given a little more credit than I deserve, but why are we talking about this? I don't want to say that out loud. So anyway. Yeah, and then I think sometimes it works the other way. I think like there's a couple people who think like, oh, like, well, she's only getting that attention, because she's a girl or whatever, and so it kind of works both ways, and I think in the end it kind of evens out, and but ultimately, like I'm a magician for me. I'm a magician for lay audiences. Like during the pandemic, I'm making a lot of magic for magicians, but I never did before that. I was always a magician for lay audiences, and like I said, like I just wasn't in the magic community until the pandemic. But I'm so grateful for it now. I've grown tremendously, since the pandemic, and being able to network with people like you, and people like Nicola that I mentioned earlier. She's been helping me recently, and I've met amazing people. So yeah, I'm really like grateful for the magic community. Just a shout out for one of these awesome people is this really incredibly creative magician named Dennis. He is the national champion of Denmark. And Dennis Bialkow, if you haven't seen his stuff, anybody listening, like go look it up right now. It's so good. Well, not now, but after Tommy. After Tommy. But you know, like Dennis is an example of like these amazing people that have been really helping me to grow as a magician. And I was putting together something that is kind of like a competition act very recently. I'm actually gonna do that later today. That act. But Dennis like was on like Zoom calls with me like every single day, and like the day before I filmed it for like a little audition. He like coached me for like 3 hours, and so, you know, like that's kind of just been this amazing thing about being in the magic community this last year, is meeting wonderful people like that. And there's so many of them. Just great people.
Cool. Yeah. I will myself look him up after the show.
He's so good. You should get him on the show. Yeah, Dennis is wonderful. He has got to be one of the most creative magicians I've ever met. He's phenomenal.
Cool.
So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about as far as this area that we're talking about right now? Have you ever felt any discrimination?
You know, just kind of the examples that I cited. You know, I think that, you know, just because I'm not really haven't been in the magic community that much, it just hasn't really been an issue for me, you know.
Right.
But, yeah.
I would have asked that earlier, but for some reason, the word discrimination blanked in my mind, and I've been trying to remain calm on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like, what the hell is that word? I couldn't remember the word, so that's why I waited so long.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. I think you pretty much covered it. How has COVID and the whole pandemic thing affected you as a performer, and what do you think about performing in the virtual world?
Yeah. Well, so I first of all, I was really only working very part-time. So I was only getting, you know, like 3-4 gigs a month is what I was starting to get. So like I wasn't a full-time performer before COVID hit, and obviously I'm not now. So I'm really fortunate that COVID, you know, didn't throw a huge monkey wrench in my life. You know, I know for people like you who are performing a lot, I mean, I can only imagine what that must have been like, and how, like, oh my gosh, my whole life is, you know, up in the air. And so I'm so impressed by people like you and people like Meadow that we were talking about earlier, who just really got creative and just started to do these online virtual shows. And I've seen one of your virtual shows, and I just think it's amazing what you're all doing. I kind of took a different tact, and I, you know, decided to use this time for networking, and which obviously the virtual shows are an amazing way to network, but I've been networking in more of like a creative way, and talking to other magicians, kind of like as consultants, to help me to grow. And so I created that act that you showed at the very beginning, where I like produced the pumpkin hat. That was essentially like a competition piece. Like, it's not a practical piece on the street. But, you know, I developed that with the help of amazing magicians. Like Tom Stone gave me director's notes for that. Nicola Arcane gave me director's notes. So for me, my virtual performance has been kind of sessioning, and then posting these videos online and growing my network. So for me, the COVID has, I can't believe I just said the COVID, but that's what people say around where I live. Anyway, COVID
The COVID.
COVID
Yeah.
has really been a rebirth for me. I feel like that scientist who like invented calculus during the plague, somebody super famous that I should know, maybe it was like Newton, I don't know. Like I'm not comparing myself to that person, but anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's been a rebirth in creativity. So I never really created magic before COVID. I did Di Vernon's Cups and Balls on the street. Eventually, I kind of moved into Cellini's routine, which is very Di Vernon-esque.
Yeah.
You know, I did a sponge ball routine that was like nothing original. And I did, you know, some ambitious card and card to mouth. It was nothing original.
Right.
But in the last 6 months, I have created like 3 standalone competition pieces, you know, pieces that could be used in competition. I've created like a lot of new sleights. Like I used the buskers pouches. Like I could write a small manuscript on original sleights for that.
Yeah,
I might.
Your use of that pouch is so good.
Thank you.
In that one practice, I know it was a practice video, and again, I'm going to say this again. You should definitely see the whole video. It was only the first minute. The whole thing was only about 4 minutes long.
4, yeah.
But it's a really great build and learning routine, and but your use of, I think, especially in the beginning with the wand, and the way you do the foot stick.
The foot stick. I'm gonna do that again in the in the little competition piece that I'm gonna be showing. Yeah, that's a cool move.
I correct people all the time, like especially younger people who think they're doing the foot stick well, and I'm like, dude, come over here, let me say this. But your use of misdirection and timing and pouch, it's very good. And
well, thank you. Yeah.
I personally might not be a good magician, but I know what good magic is, and you're doing it, and you're the fact that you want to get better at it only proves the fact that you will be where you want to be when you want to be there. So
No, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you appreciated the use of the pouch, because it's really been a big part of the last 6 months. And you know, and you know, somebody made a joke about it on that video that I posted, and they're like, "Oh, those kangaroo pouches," like, you know. And but the reality is, you know, that's what street magicians have been wearing for thousands of years. And but nobody really uses them in clever ways. Like all street magicians today, almost all street magicians are doing Gazzo's Cups and Balls routine. And his routine is absolutely brilliant. His loading method, in my opinion, you know, is you can do better, you know. And so I've been trying to create pouch methods that are fooling to not just lay audiences. And Gazzo's is very fooling to lay audiences, but I've been trying to create pouch methods that are also fooling to magicians, you know. And so that has been a huge part of COVID for me, is just this rebirth of creativity and finding these people. In fact, this the routine that I'm going to show you in a little bit, Dennis Bialkow is the Danish national champ that I mentioned to help me with it. This wonderful guy named Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips has the #1 rated DC or comedy magic show in DC. And he was a trade show magician for like 20 years. He's been helping me a lot. He's been coaching me a lot. Well, he actually got me in touch with Paul Gertner. And because I do a cup load that is kind of novel. And immediately he was like, Paul did some really novel cup stuff on Penn and Teller Fool Us. And so, so thanks to COVID, I mean, I've actually been able to get like notes on my work from people like Paul Gertner, which is just incredible.
Right.
Because I mean, I can only imagine how busy he normally is.
Right. Yeah. I feel the same way about. I'm very grateful in one sense about the pandemic is that I've been able to meet so many more musicians that I would never have been able to meet before, simply because this is the only way to talk to people and getting to meet people like yourself and having the opportunity to give you a platform to not only other people know who you are, but to perform as well.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, I mean it's amazing, I mean that Tommy, we would not have known that each other existed, I mean if not for, so yeah, I mean that's kind of the silver lining, the people.
I found you because of Meadow.
That's right.
Yeah. I asked Meadow if she could recommend a few people, and she mentioned you. She mentioned Tiffany Allen, and who's going to be on this week, and I forget, but you all said yes. So again, I'm very happy that you're here.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about my own creativity and, slights and routines, but look at the creativity of what you're doing and of what everyone with their Zoom shows, you included, are doing. I mean, it's really, a very creative time in the world of magic. And I think that when we come out of this, I think magic is going to hit a new golden era. And I know a lot of people are talking like that. I'm not original in that thought, but I mean, it's just been, a time to sit down and invent and be creative and to evaluate what we're doing. And it's, for me, it's a chance to, like that show that I mentioned, my street show, I couldn't get rid of it because it worked. I hated it. I'd done it so many times, and I developed that show in one night whenever I was like 22 or 23, but I was stuck with it because it worked. COVID has given me a chance to say goodbye to it and become a new magician, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And hopefully it'll be over soon.
Yeah.
I keep hearing different things, but I mean, I feel the same way. I'm very fortunate because when I was fairly young, I was in second or third grade. We had a young man and his wife came to my school for like a year or more, teaching us how to use a video camera. And this was back. I mean, I'm not ancient, but I'm getting there. But this was like back in 1971 or 1972, maybe.
Oh my gosh. You were in second or third grade and he's teaching you how to do film. That's awesome.
And back then, a portable video camera was almost the size of a studio camera, which is huge. And
it was like on your shoulder.
Yeah. And it had a backpack, like I think they call it a backpack, but it was a big square. It looked like a VCR, but it was like 5 times as big and 5 times as heavy as a VCR, and you had to like put it over your shoulder when you carry it. But I learned how to be in front of a camera, and I learned how to be behind the camera, and how to operate the equipment at a very early age. So I feel very lucky when we all had to start doing this. It was a fairly easy transition for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people have done far better work than I have, but I'm fine. So the question that I always ask my guests is something that is near and dear to me as a musician and a mentalist, and that question is, what is one way you can make a stronger, deeper connection with your audience? I think it's a very vital question. So, how would you answer that?
Well, so I imagine, like with your background in mentalism, I mean, mentalism is the most personal, magic. It's all about connection.
Yeah.
Whereas my magic is a little more demonstrative. So for me, and I've studied a little bit of mentalism, and I love it. Like someday I would maybe like to be a mentalist. Like I've read all of like Watkins' books, and I love Steve Wagner's work and stuff. But for me, because my magic is a little bit more demonstrative, I find that there's two ways to make a connection. Am I allowed to give two? Can I give two?
Yeah.
Okay, this one. All right. Well, okay. The one that I'm not gonna give would just be names. Just remembering people's names and using them a lot. And especially in a parlor show or a stage show, if you're using those names a lot, you show that you care about your audience, that you care enough to remember their names. And that's just like maybe easier said than done. There's obviously techniques out there for doing it, but it's like a really tangible one. But the one that maybe is a little bit deeper is to be vulnerable. And I think I don't want to be vulnerable all the time, because my stage persona, my street persona is this tough person, right? But at least like once during a show, when I'm vulnerable, I show them that I'm human and that I'm like them. And if we can have maybe shared experiences, I think that's a really good way to connect. So for instance, I do a trick with, it's a classic in magic called hanging coins. I'm sure you know it, but coins are apparently hung invisibly in the air. And I always used to preface that with a talk about my grandfather, because he got me into magic. And I say, oh, he used to pull a coin from behind my ear. Well, in COVID, I've done a couple shows where I became a little bit more vulnerable. And I just start out by saying, with COVID, I've been thinking a lot about who was in my life and who was not in my life. And lately I've been very sentimental. And, I've been thinking about how I got into magic. And then I would go into talking about my grandfather and how he got me into magic. But that first part where I say, who was in my life and who is not in my life, this is a time right now where we all have that shared experience. Even if we've not lost people to COVID, we've lost time with family and, grandkids, parents, friends. And I think, right now that's like a really shared experience. So when I use that in a show, everybody just starts nodding their heads and saying, yeah, and that I feel is like a great way to endear yourself to this audience by showing them that, you go through the same things that they do. So that's kind of my technique. It's just to be vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you might be the first guest to use the word vulnerable. And I think that is key. Many people have used the word genuine, like you have to be You need to be genuine. You also use the word human, which I think is an important aspect of being genuine. Everybody is human. A lot of performers, when they get on stage, there's that feeling of, and in a way, it's hard not to feel this way, but for a stage performer, you're looking down at people, and when you do that multiple times, eventually you start to feel like you're above these people, And I think it's important to remember that I'm just a human being like everybody else.
Yeah.
Well put. Very well
Yeah.
put.
It's funny you talking about being up on the stage and being above. I recently saw a really wonderful video clip of Frank Garcia, the old New York City manipulator that I'm sure you're so familiar with. And, John talked about Frank Garcia all the time. Frank was John's teacher. And, but John would tell me that Frank would be up there doing all these like really hard manipulative moves, and under his breath, he'd be like, "Stupid audience, like I'm so much smarter than you. I'm fooling yourself right now." And when you watch a video, like when I watched a video of him, like he is so smug. Like he is totally smug, and he's a brilliant manipulator. But a lot of his act, as many manipulators at the time was doing Cardini's act. A lot of it was kind of Cardini's act. But when we watch Cardini, we fall in love with him, because, we see this guy who's a little tipsy, and we think about times when we've been a little tipsy and the world just isn't quite right. And he's level with us. Like we can relate to Cardini, like we could have a drink with him, but like Frank Garcia, the man with the $1 million hands, is not gonna, "Hey, Luna, come here." Dog meeting. Come here, dog. Come here. Come here. Do you want to be on TV? No. All right. Well, my dog is not ready to be on TV, so she's down here. But,
Is her name Luna?
Yeah, Luna. Here, Luna, come here.
Luna.
Is this a dog party? All right.
Oh, hey, Luna.
Oh, is this the first dog party you've had on the show?
It is.
Oh, great.
Thanks. Thank
you so much. You were great.
Okay. All right. My dog Benji. Luna looks like my brother's dog, who unfortunately passed away last year. Coma. But beautiful looking dog. Ben, it's not even time for you to eat yet. All right? Bye. I know, I'm not paying attention to you. When do I not pay attention to you? Sorry about that. We'll cut that out in post.
No, you gotta leave it in. It's real. Hey, it's real. It's being vulnerable.
Yeah.
We love dogs.
Exactly. Yeah. I've made mistakes on here. I've had audio go out on me. I've had my video go out on me. I've had to leave the show 3 times, and one time the guest had to close the show because I couldn't get back on. So.
Oh my goodness! Wow. All right.
It's life, And that's kind of how my character is. I tell the truth. I was born with cerebral palsy. I have a speech impediment. I'm partially paralyzed on my right side of the body.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then I started making jokes, and so at first people are like, "What is he telling me this?" And then I started making jokes, and then they started to relax, and then they most people end up liking me. So
Yeah, talk about vulnerability. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Wow.
It took me a while to figure out how to do that. For many years, I ignored it and just performed. For many years, I didn't speak. I did a completely silent act.
Yeah.
But whenever I did the silent act, I felt like I was, um, like I was putting a gag in my mouth. I was like, I felt like I was like setting myself up to keep people happy, and
Hmm.
um, I
Yeah.
didn't want to do that anymore.
Wow.
Um,
Good for you. That is inspirational and awesome. You know.
thank, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so, what would you recommend to somebody entering the fabulous world of magic?
Yeah. Well, I wrote a couple of notes. So, the first thing is to keep in mind that, I've not, paid for a mortgage with my magic. So, take these notes with a grain of salt. But I think, one of the things is learn the basics, right? Like if you're in mentalism, learn those basics. You would know better than me, but the tears.
I was trying to unmute myself, and I muted you by mistake. Sorry.
That's you know what? I was giving away mentalism secrets so that you muted me. No, but yeah, for a magician, like instead of spending all your money on like the new hot trick on penguin.com, like
Yeah,
grab Bobo's Modern Coin Magic and
yeah,
grab Royal Road and Expert Card Technique, and if you can afford a couple volumes of Tarbell, I think learning those basics and not relying on someone else's trick, can really make things faster for you in the end. Because I think that when you're buying other people's tricks, you kind of, it's like a crutch, and you're not going to make it big if you're just doing other people's material.
except for mine. Except for mine. You can
Yes.
buy mine. You can buy mine. That's fine. No.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, but for a beginner,
I'm kidding.
now, I studied the work of all the masters, and
Yeah,
but like for a beginner, I think that learning the basics is important. All right,
absolutely.
where's my shoe that I can put in my mouth? Yeah,
No,
and
I was just kidding.
yeah.
Everything you said so far is absolutely right. Keep going.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that has really helped me to become a much better magician, and is film. Is these smartphones, I think, are the best thing that's ever happened to magic. That act that you showed a clip of, the Bill and Lemon
Mhm,
piece,
mhm.
each little segment of that has probably been filmed 100 times, just refining. And then when you film your act or a piece of your act, you find the weakest part, and then you find a way to do it better. And you just keep doing
Yeah,
that, and you keep doing it, and then you will get better and better and better and better. And then, eventually you'll have something that catches people's attention. Um, and then I think that obviously there's books on the business side. Like Jamie D. Grant has like a great book about starting out as like a strolling magician, which is not really applicable during COVID times. But finding the people who are doing it in business, or just a mentor. Like I can only imagine what a mentor you would be for someone starting out in mentalism or magic. Just because of your 30 plus years of performance experience. So those mentors can really be a jump start for us. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are my big things. Workshops too. I love workshops. I did a workshop with Carissa Hendricks at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was so good for networking. Workshops hold you accountable for creating new material. And, you get the knowledge of the masters, and I know that you did that amazing weekend with Kent and Nepper, same kind of thing. Like those workshops are huge, for growing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Kenton has been my mentor for about 9 years now. And
Wow.
he's taken he's taken everything in my magic life from here and has raised it up to here.
That's huge. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even when someone takes us from here to here, that's a big deal. But I mean, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I was really expecting only to go from here to here. But we'll, I don't want to build him up and do like a commercial for him, but it's like if he has the ability to like look at you and watch you perform and say, okay, you need to do this, get rid of this, and this, and you might want to do this, and this. Just like that. And so
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's like a director, like we all, theater performers, dancers, actors, singers, they all have a director, and, magicians usually don't. But, like we both have had this experience where you have this other person who is so knowledgeable and can be a director. I mean, it just can make such a big difference,
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I was only kidding about buying my stuff, but I will be.
No, yeah. Well, that was you didn't let me get to my fifth point, because the fifth one is to buy Tommy Burnett's books.
Nice, good.
Yeah, Tommy, what's your website? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I'll be plugging myself at the end.
All right, so Tommy's website will be at the end, and that is step number 5 to becoming big.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, as a rule, you're absolutely right. Most of the tricks on the market now may or may not be good. I'm not saying they're not good. A lot of them are, but most of them will be gone. Like in 6 months, nobody's going to care. And B, most of those originated in one of the books that you mentioned. Carvel in particular, I would say 85% of what's on the market, you can find something very similar in Carvel. Even the knuckle busting coin moves that you see people do nowadays, you can find something similar in Bobo's book. I have 2 copies of Bobo's book. I have a paperback edition and I have a hardcover edition.
Oh, do you really? I only have the paperback Dover. Yeah, my uncle got it for me when I was like 8 years old, and I never read it till I was 19, and boy, what a mistake waiting on that was,
Yeah. There's so much in there. But I think you say it very well. So I'm gonna shut up and.
No, yeah, it's good. Yeah. Is there anybody still with us? I know we've been talking for a really long time. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, we're at an hour and a half mark, and it looks like there are 3 people watching.
Oh, nice. Thanks for still being here. I'm trying to, he doesn't know it, but I'm in a competition with Steve Wachner. I want to beat his.
Oh, he knows. He knows.
Well, he knows we're in the competition. Yeah. So anyway, I think Steve is really, really great. I've never met Steve, but I think he's really wonderful. And so, yeah.
He's such a good guy. He has such a kind heart. And I was so glad to be able to finally have him on the show last Saturday. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can watch it on YouTube at Magic and Mysticism or on Facebook or on Twitch. And let's see, Metal Perry is still watching, Pat McCarthy is still watching. And,
oh, it's my aunt. Hi, Pat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And somebody else I can't see. But yeah, so I guess now would be a time to ask if there is anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about before we go to the performance.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything else. If there's no questions from the little audience that we have, I think I can get into performance.
Anybody have a question, please type it in now.
Maybe while they do that, I could do a warm-up trick.
That would be great.
All right, I brought a mentalism trick. I'm gonna do my little piece of my little competition piece, if you will. But I thought that since you're a mentalist, maybe we could just do a really fast mentalism warm-up trick, and then later after the show, you can critique me on my mind reading.
That's what they say. That's what they say. They say I'm a mentalist. Let's see. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so tell me, I've got all these cards. I'll give them a little mix here because, well, I'm a magician, so I use playing cards, right? But it's not sleight of hand. No, wouldn't do that. So I'm going to flip through like this, and I just want you to say stop whenever you want. You get a peek. I'm not going to look because, I know I've got like a monitor here that I couldn't look in, but I'm not going to. So just say stop whenever you like.
Stop.
Right, this one? No, I can keep going, or you can have that one. You like it?
Go one more.
One more? Oh, control. Let's see. Can I get one more? Boom. Is that one more?
Okay. Yeah.
You like that one better?
Yeah.
All right, you got it? All right, no, listen, I'm not going to do anything like funny. I don't like hold breaks or anything like that. So let's just have you think about your card, okay? So think about the color of your card.
Okay.
And if you're thinking of a red card, think of something hot like fire. And if it's a black card, think of something cold like Nova Scotia. All right, you're thinking of it. Think of it now. Think of something hot or cold, okay? Or whatever your card.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's coming through the Wi-Fi right now. I feel it. Like it could actually just be my computer overheating, maybe. Oh my God, I think I need a new fan. Are you thinking of something hot? Is this a red card? Oh, it is. Good. All right, great. Now, do me a favor, Tommy. Could you just picture this suit in your mind? And actually, no, let's do this. Hold your hands like this. Can you get them both on the screen? And I want you to imagine that there is a heart, a big heart on let's see, your left. So that one is a heart. And this one has a diamond. Now, in a moment, one of these cards or one of these suits is going to burst into a big ball of blue energy emanating from your hand. But make sure you don't let one hand move like this and don't stare at the one that it is. Just kind of get a poker face on, but in your imagination, whichever one corresponds to your card. My gosh, that was crazy. I almost felt like it's your left hand. I'm pointing to your left hand. I can just sense something. It was a heart, wasn't it? Is it? Yes, it was it. Okay. Oh my God, this is great. This is really good. We have a good connection. This is so good. I mean, my Wi-Fi is really good right now. Okay, so
it was fine.
I know that's the connection, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Dumb joke. Dumb joke. All right. Okay. Next step. I'm just going to start to say numbers of cards. Okay. And whenever I get to your card in your mind, I just want you to yell stop. Right. But don't like bob your head. Don't mouth it. Just in your mind. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to say, I'm ready. Ace, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I think you just said stop. Did you just say stop in your head? You did. Yeah, I heard you say it on the 3. Did you say it was? But so it was either a 2 or a 3 because I heard it right when I said 3. Is it? Oh, it was the 2 of hearts. We were so close. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was the 3 or the 2.
That's
all right.
Amazing. Yeah, that was good.
Thank you very much. So
yeah. Well
all
done.
right. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I'm gonna step into my other wheelhouse. So
Okay.
now that I'm done with my mysticism part of the show, so can we do the little competition piece?
Yeah.
All right. Great. I'm going to back up over here. All right. Ooh, look, I'm full screen. Thanks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for anybody who's never seen them before, this is the traditional garb of a street magician. These are the buskers' pouches. They call them the gibissiere, which is French for gibissiere. Nah, just kidding. All right, now check this out. Not only do I wear the pouches, but I also have the street magician's hat. Ooh, I know. I love this hat. I've been wearing it for years. When I put that on there, I feel pretty magical. How do I look? Pretty good. And then, of course, the wand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may not know this, but I am actually part of an ancient breed. Street magicians. That's right. Maybe you've even seen me out there. I was the one with the magic stick. Why is the stick magic, you ask? I'll show you. Watch. Gone. Well, that's actually really gone. Nah, it's all right though. You see, I keep an extra one, and I keep it down here. And oh, I forgot. Sometimes I keep it in my hat. Yeah, I keep a lot of things in my hat. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, the thing that I love about being a street magician, I can make magic happen anywhere I go. And you know, that's a big silver coin. Check this out. Watch closely. Watch this coin right here. You see? Yeah. Toss that right up. And of course, it comes back right about there. And you know, I love that. I can do this all day. Check it out. Ready? I'll do one more. Ready? There it is. But of course, if that's hard for you to see, because I know the background's a little messy, we can always make it bigger. Do you want bigger? No? Oh, wait, hold on. Nah, it's all right. Tell you the truth, I don't even use a big coin like this. I prefer silver dollars. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to show you a real classic of street magic. This happens to be the old 3-coin trick. I know. Would you believe it's over 5,000 years old? We know that because we've seen these coins depicted in Egyptian hieroglyphics. All right, I'm making all that up. I'm just kidding. But it does use a very old, where is it? Oh, a very old cup. The old street magician's cup. Now this part's true. Street magicians have been using cups like these for hundreds of years. The reason? That sound attracts an audience. I love that sound, but I digress. The point of this trick is very simple. All you have to do is keep your eyes on where you think those coins are, and no sooner do you think you know, one coin, oh, that was fast, jumps right across. That's one coin here, and that leaves only 2 left over here. But I'll do that again because you didn't know what to watch for. Watch carefully. The next coin goes up my sleeve, across my back, and right down into the cup. Ready for it? Right on time. That's 2. And of course, that means I've got only 1 coin left right there. Now, the last coin is perhaps the most difficult. And that's because you've seen the trick twice. You know what to watch for. Third time, goes up the sleeve across. All right. How come no one ever says she's not even wearing sleeves? All right, still works. Check it out. Ready? Watch. All 3 coins have jumped across. Now, it's right about this time that if we were out there on the street, well, you'd probably be thinking about dropping a big tip into my hat. And I appreciate that. I really do. Because you see, it's those big tips, the 10s and the 20s, that put food on my table. I know. That would be an apple. But ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed that, just wait. Because I'm about to show you something that I think you're really going to like. Watch closely. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. How was it? Yeah, that's a new piece. It's brand new.
I was on mute. That was great. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's brand new. I made that in the last 10 days. So yeah.
I love it.
Thanks.
You're very creative. I grew up watching Swahili, and I never got to meet Swahili. I know a few people who actually work with Swahili and learn from Swahili. But your coin work is really great, very good.
Thank you.
Excellent. I'm in awe. As you know, I do mostly mentalism now. I do some cards and coins here and there, but I predominantly do mentalism. And, occasionally I'll pull out my battered coins, and the only one I ever did fairly well was the Swahili's coins of the table, with the six coins and the extra coin, and but I haven't done that in years. But that was my
I would
favorite.
love to see you do it sometime. I think that's one of the greatest magic tricks that, has ever been created. I adore that routine.
Yeah, because I can't say I ever did it as well as Swahili, but
no one has.
Yeah, exactly. But I've done it as well as this guy, Tommy Burnett. So, wait, it's me.
There you go. I'm sure you do it a lot better than me.
It's me right here. So, if you have any closing words for our 3 viewers now?
First of all, to the 3 viewers who stuck around, awesome. Thank you so much for watching. And to anybody else who watches this in the future, thank you very much. And Tommy, thank you. This has been just a highlight of the year for me. It's just really nice to be social with such an amazing performer like you, and to get to know you a little bit during this interview has been just wonderful. And so thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you. I'm honored to have you as a guest and as a friend now. Hang out backstage because we're going to talk a little bit after the show.
Okay.
And everybody say goodbye and thank you to Alyx. And now we're going to do a couple of shameful plugs. First of all, if you are a magician or a mentalist and are interested in doing some original mentalism or mental magic, please stop by my website, magictaboo.com. Everything on there is created by me, and by everything I mean like 8 or 9 things. So it's not like I created a whole bunch of stuff, but I put out a new thing every 6 months or so. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. is my good friend Omar Illusion's virtual interactive magic theater, and I am the closing act. So that begins at 1 p.m. We have a lot of performers. Usually we don't have as many performers. We have 7 performers, all great in their own right. So head on over to omarillusion.nyc. There will be 2 buttons there. One that says view on Facebook and one that says view in Zoom. We appreciate you going in Zoom so we can have volunteers, but feel free to watch any way that makes you comfortable. And finally, next Friday, it was my honor to have Tiffany Allen as my guest on the show. We have not met before, but I have heard and seen great things. So tune in for that next Friday, 3 o'clock. Thank you for watching the show. I always close the show by saying that the magic is inside of you. It is not your props. So keep that in mind the next time you go online looking for the next big trick that will make you popular. If I can come up with stuff, so can you. And I think that's the only way we can make magic stay alive is by I cut myself off. And being creative. That's all I was going to say. Okay, take care, guys.